Yippee-Ki-Yay, mother.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Welcome to another edition of Yippee-Ki-Yay, Mother Podcast. I'm Ralph Quartucci.
I'm Sean Paul Murphy.
I'm Debbie Murphy.
I'm Michelle Wojciechowski.
I'm Brad Barowie.
I'm John Quattruthy.
I'm Drew Gould.
And we have a special guest. Sean, would you like to introduce our guest, please?
Yes, our special guest this week is Trish Schweers. She's a friend of Debbie and mine, and she's a longtime listener to the podcast. She even listens to the Q Brothers.
Oh,
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
To talk about Bride of Frankenstein with us. Her background is she's in the film business. She has worked on films in Europe, Asia, Indonesia, Australia, and the United States. She's worked
South
quite
America.
a bit with director Bruce Beresford. She's worked on a lot of sets with a lot of stars, and now she's here with us.
She's very talented and she's very beautiful and she's a very dear friend of ours.
Welcome, Trish.
well, welcome
Thank
aboard.
you
What
very
an
much.
introduction.
Wow.
Holy cow.
How do you get by that?
Wait a
I don't
minute.
know. All right. Well, here we start. So I'm just going to point to somebody. We're going to say, what did you watch this week? So let's start with Wojo and Brad.
We watched the rest of the Queens Gambit. Great.
And
I loved it. Absolutely.
No spoilers.
Show, yeah.
Yeah, just I mean, they pack so much into each episode. You know, when we first saw it was 7 and a limited episode series, we thought, well, 7, I mean, what kind of, because you're used to, you know, at least 10, a couple scenes, blah, blah, blah. It was just fantastic. Yep. Highly recommend.
good. Drew, what do you got?
Well, I'm not going to talk about the Queen's Gambit because you guys already talked about it.
I think you mentioned it a week or two ago too.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and you should all watch it.
Yeah.
Well, I watched 3 things this week. One was a movie that was, I guess, a long-awaited sequel that nobody was waiting for, called Terminator: Dark Fate, and it was a movie.
Okay.
I also watched The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot, which is a Sam Elliott movie that looks like a big, crazy exploitation movie and has the credits and everything, but it's actually a really sort of sad, mournful look at being old and figuring out that you may have made mistakes in your life. So that was really fun. And then the best thing that I watched, I mean, I thought I would like it, but it was really quite wonderful, and I actually cried. Chelsea Handler has a new special on HBO called Evolution, which is really funny and really great. And also, she talks a lot about how the death of her brother shaped her life and her family. And it's really, really moving. Like, wow. So I would skip Terminator. If you're in a quiet mood, you can watch The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot, but you have to rush the title. It's no assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, but it gets there. But I would recommend Chelsea Handler Evolution, which I believe I saw it on HBO Max. I don't know if it's an HBO Max exclusive or just HBO, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Oh, nice. Good. Sean and Debbie.
Well, we are watching, and we don't want to talk about it yet. We are watching Queen's Gambit. We're not done.
It's a double rhythm.
We're sitting down and watching 3 to 4 episodes back to back in a long time. However, the big film we saw over the week was we were sort of trying a film out for possible inclusion on the podcast called Straw Dogs, which we watched with our friend Trish because she was thinking about that film after our Clued episode when we were talking about films that left people who saw them too young kind of, you know, in a weird sexual, perversion.
Here we go.
And Trish saw Straw Dogs, another film from 1971.
Oh my God. Such a year.
John's
What a
favorite.
year.
And I will say, I don't want to say too much about the film in case we watch it later, but it was the Criterion disc. And one of the people said that Sam Peckinpah set out to have the best rape film yet. Yet.
We always got to say rape one time in this show, every time. It's
I'm not
amazing.
watching that movie.
I mean,
I'm not here.
I'm gonna ring the bell when we do rape now. It's unbelievable. All right, following that, how about you, Trish? Did you see anything this week you'd like to, other than Straw Dogs, that you'd like to mention? No pressure. Trish, did you see anything this week?
Yeah, I'm new.
Yeah, that's all right.
I was very glad to be able to see Straw Dogs with sensible company, because it's clear that it would not be a really good recommendation to watch again. I haven't seen it since I was 13.
Wow.
You saw that when you were 13?
A friend in 8th grade, her mother dropped us off at the movie theater, the Pikes.
Wow.
There were 3 of us. We were 8th grade
Pikes?
buddies. We went in to see the movie and thought our biggest issue was going to be what we would eat during the movie, if it'd be noisy or not. And then we saw the movie and we came out and our mom met us at the parking lot and said, "How was the movie?" We all just looked at each other and said, "It was terrible."
Wow.
We knew we couldn't dare tell her mother what the movie was. And then she said, "Well, do you think that your brother would like it?" And we don't let him see it. I just am, so it was a good viewing, very thoughtful discussion afterwards, and the Criterion commentary as well. I can see it has some value in the history of film, but I hope I never see it again. And
Wow. There's a
I would
recommendation.
recommend it as a general viewing.
You just made
Good
about
call, Trish.
you made about 4/6 of this podcast very happy.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
me, but,
well,
so-
I mean, yeah, I watched it to see what it was, but I didn't have good recollections from the old days.
Oh wow.
I just
Wow.
remembered that it was something that I remember as it was happening. I was thinking, I shouldn't be watching this. I'm not supposed to see this.
I had the opposite reaction to Clute, seeing it after 40 years. So yeah, it's funny how
Yeah,
this works.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
and
All right.
I
That's good.
yeah.
Okay.
I-
John?
So anyway, that's the main thing I watched this week. I didn't really have a time. I don't know. I made the schedule where you can see 3 movies in a week. I want that.
Yeah.
Well, that's, yeah. Well, we're not supposed to talk about the 3 like Drew. But anyway, before I give you my recommendation, I think it's really important that I remind everybody that we want you to subscribe, like, share, hit the notification bell. We're available on all kinds of streaming services. You don't get this kind of content anywhere. So please take advantage of it. Now, what am I watching? Well, one of them I mentioned on the Q
I'm sorry,
Brothers
John.
podcast.
We're out of time.
I watched, well, Drew, you did take 20 minutes. I watched High Noon, which I absolutely love. One of my favorite Westerns of all time. And I finally watched the final season of Schitt's Creek. Love that show. I think I wasn't crazy about the final season. I thought it was okay. It wasn't nearly as funny. Catherine O'Hara was still the funniest thing on that show.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the last season was a little bit weak, but I love the send off at the end where they kind of righted everything. So I recommend it highly if you haven't seen it. So that's what I'm watching. That's what I
just started watching that one. It looks pretty funny.
It is. It's
Oh,
really good
it's
show.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's not my recommendation though. Mine is a movie on Hulu starring Sarah Paulson called Run.
Run?
I've heard of this.
She plays a mother who has a small child. Not the small child, but her daughter, played by Kira Allen. And it's about their story of them growing up together. It's a horror, basically a kind of I don't want to say full horror, but it's a movie about a mother who controls her daughter's life. Her daughter's in a wheelchair and played by an actress who's a paraplegic and does a fantastic job. And Sarah Paulson goes full Nurse Ratched in this film. She plays a mother who has the baby's born with some problems at the beginning, and the mother has to take care of her whole life. And the whole premise of the movie is about the daughter's about to leave for college and how it's going to affect parents who have been taking care of their children for so long. And it starts with Sarah Paulson saying, I can't wait for her to go. I want to date again. I want to get out. And it's just the opposite of that. But you got to watch it all the way through to the end because it's got a great button at the end. And it's very well acted. It's on Hulu. No commercials. It plays straight through. It's a fantastic film. So you guys should check that one out.
Run, Lola, run.
It's not Run Lola. It's only one run. Run.
Just Run.
That's what it's called.
Back to baseball again.
I read something about that movie, and it was described as the first thriller built around a main character in a wheelchair since 1948.
Wow.
I looked that up, and there's a movie by John Sturges that I've never heard of called The Sign of the Ram. where the lead character is in a wheelchair. And apparently that was not anything that anybody explored. I couldn't remember the year. I thought, are they going to say Rear Window or something? But it was the sign of the ram. So apparently Run is really something we haven't seen before.
And she does an amazing job. The stuff she has to do, this physical thing she has to do, there's all kinds of stuff about how she's handling what's going on. It's fantastic. So if you get a chance, take a look at that one. But today we're here Debbie has brought a film to the table. Debbie, tell us what film you brought. Can you tell what you brought?
I love this movie, and it's you know, I saw it. I don't remember seeing it before Young Frankenstein, but I know I did. But then when, or maybe I saw Young Frankenstein first. Then when I married Sean, he showed me all his movies with Boris, and you gotta love Boris, and Bella, of course, the old monster actors. And this movie was just so fantastic for me to watch when I saw it. I picked this one when we were going through our favorite movies, Trish, and I wanted it to win, but it didn't even get second place.
You mean in the
yeah, so I picked
in the roulette, in the Halloween roulette.
Yeah, the Halloween roulette.
She's not bitter about it.
Not at all.
got it back in the mix. Yeah.
Do we have to mention that there are spoilers?
It's only 85 years old. Give people time.
Yeah, it's a pretty recent
You gotta
film.
wait till it's been at least 86 years to start talking.
Not only that, the story starts, the opening scene.
Do you want to see a trailer first, or do you want to?
Let's see the trailer.
Let's show the trailer, because I don't know if anybody's seen this film, to be honest with you.
This movie is just so beautiful. The opening scene, you guys remember, there's the writer of
Mary Shelley.
Shelley, which she wasn't Mary Shelley at that time. She was in the conversation with her would-be future husband,
Percy.
Percy.
Mm-hmm.
And you know,
Byron. And Lord Byron.
And England's greatest sinner, Lord Byron.
Yes. And they start out with their discussion, which I love the opening of that scene. The you know, it was just so beautiful to see that. And then basically he, Dr. Frankenstein, he manufactures a human being, you know, like creator. And it's very philosophical, this movie. I loved it. And what I loved about it also is going back and seeing this film, comparing it to the original Young Frankenstein, which was a make of this one, you know. So it was just great how it was so funny. And some of the scenes that I'd watched with The Bride of Frankenstein was pretty much duplicated in Young Frankenstein, scene for scene. And I'm just actually going back and laughing at the funny way that it was done. So I really totally enjoyed the film, just
Wait a minute, the funny way Young Frankenstein was done, or this one was done?
this one was reminding me of how funny Young Frankenstein was.
Right.
To go back and say, wow, that it's so hilarious. I got a second joke, you know what I mean, by watching Bride of Frankenstein.
Especially the scene with the hermit. I mean, you couldn't stop thinking of Gene Hackman.
That's all I can think of is Gene Hackman.
Waiting for Gene Hackman to be, making you crack up.
Cigars.
Wine, good. You know, it's just the way. Oh, and I love the way now the director did want Frankenstein to talk, but there was controversial talk that he shouldn't have been able to talk.
Well, Karloff didn't want it to talk. He was the one that didn't want it.
Yeah.
Wants you to talk. Not the director wanted him to talk.
The director wanted it. Yeah.
Because that's more like the novel. The novel, he's articulate.
And that's what I thought was weird is that he talks, but he talks like, me die, you, good, wife, you work. And I wonder how they made that choice when they decided that he would talk.
Now, Trish, you had just read the novel, didn't you, in a book club or something?
A few months ago, yeah, not long ago. He was so articulate in the novel. I mean, he wrote long, complicated treatises. I think he might have even known a second language. He didn't start off as an imbecile. And in the movies, they play him.
That's not as scary, right?
His speech in this movie makes him seem imbecilic.
Well, it does also echo the idea that when you get a transplant, this guy, anybody creating a life like that, you would have some kind of memory. Your cells, it's really strange how that's done. Your body has memory. The cells in your body has memory. And it's so conceivable that you can, even though you've done some brain damage if you've been dead and now you're alive, theoretically.
I would,
no, really?
They should have had some.
I'm just shocked at how philosophical we're getting. This is why you brought this film, because there's some metaphor you're trying to tell us. I can't quite get what you're getting at here.
It's alive.
It's alive.
I'm trying to figure out what you're saying to us. Can you just say it? What is it?
Okay, life is more than what we would know. Here we are in 2020, and we're just beginning to unlock the secrets of, we got mRNA that's, doing all this good stuff with the viruses. It's amazing. It's amazing to me that we've come so far, and learning about the body, how cells work, how memory is in the cells, and you could just have a couple of cells. And there have been incidences of transplants, patients who have some kind of weird memory, past.
Well, Young Frankenstein, they definitely traded stuff.
Yeah, when they got that brain from that person,
Abby
normal.
And normal Frankenstein, where the guy, they think if they cut the head off of this one guy, that his whole life will be based on that memory, but they get the wrong head and they end up with the guy who's not, he has a good nose, but he doesn't have the brain they wanted. So they get stuck with this crazy person who goes around killing people.
Yes.
But they didn't carefully pick in Bride of Frankenstein. Didn't he just pick a girl who was 19 who happened to die young?
With the heart, yeah. No, they killed her.
No, they killed her. They murdered her.
Killed her. He went out and killed her.
Yeah.
So the point, it would seem like his standards were get somebody young, not somebody with a lot of good memories or anything.
Well, he wanted someone with a fresh heart.
Yeah.
All right.
You promised me 1,000 crowns.
It was a
Dwight Fry.
accident case.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's many things in this movie. Okay. The little people, Pretorious with the little people and the
Little black magic.
The film is gorgeous, beautifully shot.
It's a beautiful.
Now, I think we talked about this in the roulette, but who directed James Whale?
James Whale.
Yeah.
Like, this is the movie where he let his freak fly, like he was
Right.
going to do whatever he wanted in this film.
Because he was not going to do the sequel. He did not want to do it.
So what did he add to, what was his flourishes in this that made it what it is?
The openly gay. Ernest
Well,
Thesiger is
that's
like-
one.
The
But he
which one?
also
Openly gay
opened
who?
up the sets. The sets were gigantic compared to the first one. When you look at the Frankenstein house with the high ceilings, really, really overblown, so that they had more money to spend. It was very quirky. I mean, it was quirky. And it was because of Dr. Pretorious, Una O'Connor as the maid there.
Didn't he make sure she was in this? Because he picked her. That was maybe one of his power plays too, that he got her.
Was that Minnie, the woman playing Minnie?
Yeah.
The screaming.
Yeah.
Flav Looker, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's
pretty much.
Right.
Only a diminutive of Frau Barucha.
And frankly, this is
she's in the first scene too, taking the dogs out.
Yes.
this is one of the sequels that's better than the original.
Oh yeah,
this is better than the original, and the original is a classic. And I think because James Whale never really got to do this again, where it was all his vision, and they really left him alone.
Well, what exactly made this better than the first one? Because they had more to play with. There was more. I mean, because of the bride. What made this better than the first one? I'm just asking completely. I don't know.
Well, I would say for a couple reasons. One, the first film was kind of humorless. It was very straightforward. It was a very good horror film and had a lot of creepy things. And it had some good sets, but this one had a huge amount of humor. And it had I'm surprised they got away with this Pretorious character post-code because, it's more than just the fact that you don't have to scratch very far to assume that he's gay. But additionally, he is so evil. You know what I mean? There's he's not redeemable at all. I mean, he's evil and he's loving it, and he's so misogynistic. You would have thought he came out of a Peckinpah film, like the way he sniffs at the wife, woman talking to me. It's surprised that he wants to make a woman, but he's so, delightfully diabolical, and but he's funny enough that it compensates for how evil he is. I mean, in fact, he never really gives, Frankenstein's obsession with creating life is understandable. He talks about it, but for, Pretorious, it seems to be more theoretical, and he has no conscience that he's created these little people. I mean, it's what are these little people going to do? It isn't like he's able going to put them back into the world or create something.
Well, I bet back then people were amazed at how they realistically made that, what the camera tricks and editing and things that they did. So it looked like there were actual little people. We talked about that people were probably just completely freaked out,
Yeah, it did. It looked good.
It still looks great.
Looks
good. Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah.
It was also very anti-religion too. I don't know if you caught that, Deb.
Yeah.
At one point he talked about Bible stories, very snarkily. And then the other scene was when Frankenstein's walking through the cemetery. They originally filmed it where he knocks over the cross,
right?
And the censors wouldn't let them do that. So they reshot it where he knocks over the bishop instead with the cross in the background, which sent the message that he wanted. So it was very interesting the way they did that.
And the one time he threw the guy.
There's Christ references too.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the obvious one, right?
Being thrown in and all. I mean, the theology of the film is really there. Is kind of confused.
It's the creative process, when we go and what's scary to me, I don't know, this movie echoes some of the dangers of, cloning.
Cloning?
Which is science. Yeah, it's the creative.
Yeah, here's the weird thing about cloning. I mean, philosophically or theologically or whatever way, creativeness, when you do that, you're becoming like God. But we can clone people, we can clone things like that. It's a matter of time. But do those beings, do they have a soul? And if you think about your grandchildren, you think about your great-grandchildren and your great-great-grandchildren. What if they were to marry somebody that did not possess a soul? Now that would be a movie for 2080.
Okay, can we get back to the little people now? The little people in the doors. I know you're trying to send a signal here. I'm not quite catching the drift.
I think the little people. I remember. I mean, I hadn't seen this movie in a long time, but I didn't see it until I think I was in college or something. And I remember I was watching it and I was like, well, this is a very good movie. I'm enjoying it. The vibe is different. But then I saw The Little People and I said, this movie is way weirder. That's fantastic. And to me, that's one of the big things you asked about, like what makes it a better sequel. It is, as John said, it's bigger, but it's not just that it's a larger sequel. It is just different and weird. And whenever I think of the movie, I actually think of the little homunculi before I think of anything else, because that's the scene that made me go, I don't know what's going to happen in this movie that's at the time 60 some years old that I've never seen.
Right.
And it's just really it's just remarkable that they were able to do this, 85 years ago, because Frankenstein is a good movie and it's a good horror movie, but this is weird and funny and has a great script. And I guess James Whale did the movie because they let him do other movies that he really wanted to do. But then this is, I guess, the most James Whale movie that ever was made. And I will probably talk about this later, but I don't know if you guys have seen Gods and Monsters, the movie about James Whale making this movie.
Excellent.
That I think has a lot of great insight also into who the guy was and all that kind of stuff.
A world of gods and monsters.
Yeah, but I mean, the creations in this movie, they live on for a reason. And it's just really good. It's also a way, way better sequel to Frankenstein than that other movie that I didn't care for, about a younger Frankenstein or something.
Ghost of Frankenstein. The third
No, he's
one?
talking about Young Frankenstein.
Talking about Young Frankenstein.
Oh, you son of a...
I know, but it's 6,000 views. 6,000 views.
6.1. 6,100 views.
Well, you're welcome.
Well, you can see why Mel Brooks mined his script from this movie. I mean, you can see all the elements are there. Right down to the equipment. I think they use the same equipment.
They did.
From this film.
Yep, they did.
And it's it's just rich with all that stuff you guys are talking about, no question. And even the scenes where the villagers are jumping out into right at the beginning where the guy drowns, the guy with the little Maria that drowned, and then the wife follows behind him, and it is very strange. And
he flat out murders the one guy in the water and then kills an innocent old woman who had already lost their child in the previous movie. I mean,
that was the father of the child that went down.
Well, they did try to burn him up in the window.
Yeah, they did try.
There's a lot of bad blood there.
Yeah.
The one guy who killed it reminded me of Propeller Man in Titanic. You throw it and hit the rock and...
But I like the way they set that up at the beginning with Mary Shelley, Elsa Lanchaster.
I was going to talk about that.
She was beautiful in that scene, and then she was the bride. But they also set up a rehash of the first movie showing flashbacks, which was interesting. I don't know how often they did that back then.
That's
but
true.
They showed you scenes from the original movie to set it up. So I thought that was kind of cool the way they did that. So,
yeah, that conceit at the beginning, I think some people complained about that scene at the beginning. I've read something about people weren't happy about the conceit they did, having them talk about the book she wrote and then having her be the character. Because if you look in the credits, it says the bride, and there's something like guess who, or we don't know who it's going to be.
Question mark.
They did the same thing with Karloff in the first movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but this time it was he got top billing.
Yeah.
Karloff the monster. Yeah,
just one name. Karloff was like Cher.
That's right. And he was look, I know that in the book he was much more articulate, but remember this sequel is based on the first one where he was mute, a child basically. So he wasn't going to be articulate. He was a child learning to speak. So I actually think it worked. In fact, Karloff later on in life said that it was the right choice because frankly, in the blind man scene, it worked beautifully. And at the end, when he achieves his humanity, he needs to be able to articulate that. And I think he did it in a simple way, like a child, because that's how Karloff played it. He played it as a child, not the way it was written in the book. And I think it works. And the other thing is Jack Pierce's makeup, which is so incredibly iconic. When you think of Frankenstein, you think of that. Well, think about female horror characters. And really the only one who comes to mind is the Bride of Frankenstein because the look is so distinct, right? But how many female monster characters can you think of that come to mind when you're asked that question? It's usually the Bride of Frankenstein that you think of. Young Frankenstein, they did the exact same thing with the wig and everything. So another iconic look, and it was a beauty makeup. If you noticed it was a beauty makeup other than the scars on her neck, right? It wasn't like the monster was. So and that noise she made, which was, she said she heard swans or something. The hissing, that was her idea.
The hissing from the swans.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was perfect. And the look on his face when he realized, she had no interest in him at all. I mean, it said everything to me. That's what made
He was a monster.
That
He was a monster. She was just like, and that was her husband.
friend.
Dating.
So sweet.
Again, I think Debbie's trying to say something here. I don't know. For my own.
It says a lot about marriage too.
Here we go. I knew it.
His resolution at the end, where he sends the good people away and just burns them all down. We must die.
All right, wait, Trish. Since you brought that up, I want to show you something. So
we'll do it like this.
In the original ending, Dr. Frankenstein gets killed. They reshot the ending to have the happy ending.
You could see him against the wall.
That's what I'm going to show you. If you see on the left, that's Dr. Frankenstein. That's the final scene in the movie. And Frankenstein's got it on the lever right there. So they were going to kill him off, and they wanted what was that? A happier ending than was originally thought of. And I think it worked too, because again, I think it showed Frankenstein's humanity, the monster's humanity. It's the same thing. People think it's a little sappy, but in the hermit scene, when the hermit says, I finally have a friend, and you see the tear going down the mountain. That was an emotional scene for a movie of this type. And to be honest, I'm a huge Universal monster fan. All those movies I absolutely love. This is the best one out of the bunch because I think the characters are the best. Pretorious, that guy. The scene that encapsulates everything is when he's sitting at the coffin and this big hulking monster comes out of the shadows and he turns and says, "Oh, I thought I was alone." That's such a great line. And it tells you everything about it. It's beautiful.
John, how about this scene when he's sitting there with the skull and the bones?
Yeah, with the food and the wine. He was awesome. He was a great character. Just a great evil character.
It's evil. Say the drinking of the wine. He says, "It's my only."
And he said that like 4 times in the movie.
It's my only vice. Smoking is my only vice. Heroin is my only vice.
Right. He's a very self-aware guy.
Yeah. And then for the first time, when the monster speaks, and Dr. Frankenstein is like, "What? Yes, there's been some. I don't know what the word he used was. Like there's been some changes or something." It was just so funny the way they did it. So I just love this movie. It's just beautiful. And Franz Waxman did the music, and the score is unbelievable. And it was used in the Flash Gordon serial after this.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a great score. Everyone had their own theme. The bride had the wedding march, that little 3-note wedding march.
What a great wedding night! You said it.
Yeah, and Pretorious had his little freaky one. I just love this movie.
All of the music was unresolved until the final ending scene, which it's subliminal when you watch it, but then when you realize that music just doesn't resolve, and then you're waiting. So it builds tension in the score. That's what I really loved about it. Just like
they actually played her theme in the opening scene with when Elsa was Mary Shelley. They played that theme. My only knock on this movie, and there's only one: why does a scientist have a lever in the castle to blow up the castle?
Yeah, because it was installed.
I don't understand that. Why do you have it? It's not functional. Why do you need it?
Just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case.
When he set up his table and to steal all the electricity from the air. I guess that's the surge protector for the rest of the house.
just blow the whole thing up. Don't touch the lever.
No. Wait until the lightning's done. Yeah. You gotta have the right
contractor was like $5,000 more. We could put a lever there, blow up the whole place. 5,000. I could probably put it in for two's okay.
It'll take you a month.
Yeah, take
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
I've seen this film listed as science fiction. Does anybody else think it fits in with that?
Well, I think
for the time, yeah.
Is it? Is Jurassic Park
people in the jar?
Is Jurassic Park science fiction because it's about creating life? I don't know. I mean, it could be either. To me, this movie also. I don't know if you guys have seen. This is definitely science fiction, and it's also supremely weird. Have you seen the movie Splice with Adrian Brody?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a movie about people who are trying to create basically in the lab create meat that people can eat without having to slaughter cattle. And so they create a life form, but it's not stable. And then they say, well, I guess we'll just make a person. Make a person. And it's female, but it's not human. It's Sarah Polley and Adrian Brody. They're amazing. I cannot remember the name of the actress who plays the little girl. But I watched that movie and it reminded me of this because it might be science fiction, but it's also that oddness that is like there's a lot of weird stuff in science fiction, but this is genuinely odd and it drew me into it. And Splice was the same way because I don't know where this is going to go, but I want to know. Whereas Frankenstein, it's not shocking the twists and turns that it takes. And so as sequels go, that's another reason I think it's a better sequel.
Oh, it's funny when you look at the science, the consideration of science at the time. They're talking about the heart being the most complex organ.
Oh, right.
You know, which is obviously not the case at all. It's
yeah, but it's your brain that's telling you it's the most important, so you don't know if you can trust it.
That is so cerebral. That is so brilliant.
Now, Drew, I have a question for you. We were talking about like some of the Christian symbolism in it, but as they were pointing out in the commentary track, when he brings out the little people, he's wearing a skull cap reminiscent of a yarmulke, and they're thinking it's a Jewish reference. You know, and they're saying they took it from
alchemy,
and also the Golem. You know, the silent.
Well, I mean, the Frankenstein, the whole Frankenstein story. I think I don't know about the novel, but definitely explicitly some of the movies that have been inspired by it is the story of the Golem. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but for our listeners, basically the Golem is. The shortest version is there's in Europe in the Middle Ages, there's a Jewish community that's under threat of a pogrom, of being attacked. So what the community does, the rabbi makes a figure out of mud, and he writes on the face of this giant this giant clay man, he writes the word truth, emet in Hebrew, and it comes to life and it defends them and it kills all the people that want to kill them. But it's also then out of control. So you have to stop it. So they created a monster like Frankenstein did, and the monster slips out of control. And the way that you stop a golem is you got to go up to its head. So this is not safe. And you rub off the first letter of emet, and it becomes the word met. These are all the Hebrew letters, and that means death. So the idea of building a monster and losing control of it, and different versions of the golem, some of them have its own agency. Some of them, it's essentially like an automaton, like a metropolis, like the very classic things that you see in a lot of these movies. But the golem is one of my favorite things in folklore and anything. I don't know if you guys read The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon.
Yeah.
Fantastic book, fantastic author. And that's basically part of that. It's all about comic books and all these things, but part of it is about children that wish they could create a golem to save their family that they've lost from the Nazis. And so it's very primal, building a monster to protect your community. And it's weird because they built the monster in the first movie because they're arrogant and they want to create life. But then they built the monster in the second movie because the monster they built is like a lonely 13-year-old. And he's and it's kind of sweet, and it's actually really tragic that she doesn't like him. And then you have to pull the lever.
Well, you know, taking it current now into our times, you know, they've tried versions of this where the monster is articulate. And you know, those things, I think there's a TV series I can remember back in the
Michael Sarrazin.
Michael Sarrazin, that's right. And they follow more of the book where he goes into the Arctic and he hunts him in the Arctic. And I think.
Oh, yeah. I watched a couple of episodes of that.
Yeah. Much truer to the book.
Right.
Yeah.
And they did it with De Niro, too. De Niro's
they tried De
version.
Niro. Frankenstein Unbound, I think, is something.
There's also one where with Sean Bean as I think a police detective.
I saw that. Yeah.
The same kind of period. So wardrobe is like Frankenstein, and it's called Frankenstein Chronicles, but it's I didn't watch enough episodes to see if they finally solved who's killing these people, but it's unclear in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, he was good.
If this film came out, would kids watch this film now?
Well, they wouldn't do it like this.
Kids wouldn't.
They were talking about remaking it with you know, when Universal was going to have the Dark Universe. They were going to have Angelina Jolie be the bride.
Well, they did a movie called The Bride where Sting played Frankenstein.
With
and
Jennifer Beals, I think. Wasn't she the bride?
Flashdance played the
I've
bride.
never
Did
seen
it
that. Have
stick
you
to
guys
this
seen that?
version? Did you see it?
What?
Was it like this version?
No. Well, it was not car. It was
No, it wasn't.
contemporary, but it was not. This.
She was articulate, and she, you know.
Oh.
But she's a maniac. No.
And then her head fell off. She was
Yeah,
dancing
then her
too
head
fast.
fell off. Yeah. But she
Yeah,
had
she
the
was
little,
wearing something
she
around.
had the little choker on. Then they took the
Right.
choker off.
Right.
Brad,
so-
what do you think about this movie?
Birthday boy.
It's your birthday. What?
By the way, it's Brad's birthday today. Happy birthday, Brad.
Thank you. Well, as a birthday present to you all, I'm going to tell you that I didn't like it nearly as much as all of you did.
All right, let's move on to the next person.
Oh, no.
Brad, I'm sorry, Brad. What? Okay, give us why you didn't like it.
Well, for one thing, these really, really old movies like this are not my cup of tea. I mean, I didn't absolutely hate it. I realized for its time it was very, it was a really well done movie. It was, but I don't know. I have a question for Ralph related to it, because Ralph is always pointing out how he hates the overacting.
Oh yeah, well,
this movie you haven't said a word about, but oh my god!
Because I was waiting. Actually, no, I was gonna.
Do that again. That's hilarious.
I appreciate the film. I appreciate the look of the film. I appreciate what the director was doing. I, like you, cannot take myself away from the overacting stuff, and I can't get buried in the mythology of it all. It's just not. It's not my, like you. It's not my cup of tea. Because I don't remember. I only watched this for the podcast, for this podcast, and I think the first time we did the roulette, maybe I watched it then.
Yeah.
It's too staged for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why, because all these people come from the stage.
Understood.
So it's filmed that way.
It was very Shakespearean.
I know I shouldn't do this because it's just, you shouldn't do this, but to look at it in 2020 eyes and to think about that this would actually scare people when they watch it for the first time. I have a hard time separating myself from that. And that's not fair. It's not fair at all, because 50, 60 years from now, they're going to be saying the same things about us. But I just can't imagine people sitting around just being frightened, but especially when he's the hermit thing. And I don't know if it's because of Young Frankenstein, but it's like that scene is just
it's because of that. Yeah.
Young Frankenstein ruined that scene because they were spot on. I mean, he nailed every, Mel Brooks hit every note with this thing. And I just
that's what I kept thinking as I'm watching. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that from Young Frankenstein. Oh yeah, I remember that from.
And that's a much better Bride of Frankenstein movie. Young Frankenstein is. But again, I appreciate as I'm watching it now, just the art involved in putting this together is pretty amazing.
I agree with that.
It was a really well done piece of work for 1935.
I mean, we were glad we watched it, but I wouldn't willingly watch it again. And that's just us. Right. It's just different.
And like you said, it certainly
and,
wasn't because it scared me.
Every time when a whole big crowd of people, like in the middle of the day, this whole crowd of people runs out, and I said, does anyone have a job?
I know
the job is tending the torches.
Yeah, it's all the tropes. John loves the word trope, right?
Love
John?
the word trope. And it's a real good debate we're having over the tropes.
With the pitchforks. I mean, it hits every one of those things. And even that's
what started the tropes. I mean,
the Burgermeister. There's actually a Burgermeister in this one, right? Yeah. There's a guy but without the darts. So I appreciate the film, but like Wojo, I have no reason to watch it again.
But the guy from the darts is actually the police chief from Son of Frankenstein. You can tell the
Chief Inspector Kemp.
Son of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Has anyone seen Nephew of Frankenstein?
I don't think it gets enough
sister-in-law of Frankenstein.
Mine is Frankenstein.
What was that, Trish?
Our neighbor's third cousin.
Trish, what doesn't it get enough credit for?
I think the movie doesn't get one of the things that unfortunately gets pushed under the carpet and is just in the movies, not in the book, is this whole like honeymoon, they just got married element. Because the Elizabeth part of it just disappears so easily in the movie. But it's kind of weird when you look at it later and realize they're newlywed and he's taking time away to go and like put together another monster.
Put together a
Yeah, what an asshole.
Well, he was kind of forced into it. He was kind of forced into it.
He wanted to do his science though.
It's an obsession.
You could say he only did it to save her because the monster came and kidnapped her, but
he wanted to do it.
And there were things, there were other things in the movie that, like Ralph, if I could have suspended my disbelief a little better, I think I would have been able to enjoy it more. But there were certain things like, Frankenstein, the scientist, they think he's dead and he looks like crap. And 2 minutes later, he's sitting up in bed and he's
up and running around. Let's go do an experiment.
And it just, I'm just used to different things.
Yeah, you have to suspend that disbelief because
Yeah,
given that the director was gay, right?
Yeah.
All the women are hysterical in this. Like even Elizabeth's feigning like she's fainting. Like I couldn't figure out why she was feigning. She's having all these, then the monster comes in and drags her out. The way he represented the women in this was kind of fascinating too.
Except Mary Shelley, who's just competently embroidering away.
Right.
Yeah, I thought, wow, she wrote this novel, but let's not show her talk. She's got to be doing her embroidery with the men.
They didn't have TV back then.
This is what happens when you open up a movie for analyzing, John. I know it's driving you crazy, but
I totally disagree with all of you.
I can't tell because you always make that face and you look down and you just go like this.
Drew, what were you going to say, Drew?
I think it's pretty telling that you can have, 85 years later, you can discuss the different things that come out of this movie and
agreed
what has influenced it. You can look at the movie and you can say it's a horror movie, it's science fiction, it's a reverse of the story of Jesus Christ where he dies, where he gets resurrected and then he dies. Like it's all this different stuff that's going on in the movie that is worth discussing. I would have been curious to see. It would probably have sucked because the other Dark Universe movies sucked, but the Angelina Jolie remake I think was going to be directed by Bill Condon, who did Gods and Monsters, and clearly has some real insight into.
But I think they would have had to change the movie because the Bride of Frankenstein, in essence, is in this film for all of minutes.
Right, and it's an Angelina Jolie movie. So,
if they had her in it, they would have That's
a script. We'll never see that movie, but that's a script. I'd be curious to read that script just to see. Probably it's done poorly because a lot of those movies didn't work, and that's why they all died. I don't know if you saw The Mummy.
The Mummy killed the franchise.
Yeah,
what they wanted
with a Tom Cruise mummy.
The one with Tom Cruise.
The one with Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
the one with Brandon Fraser. Those are great.
No, listen, I can sit here and say
Brandon Fraser one.
Yeah, that's a good one, by the way.
That is a good one.
I can sit here with my 20/20 eyes and say, you kind of laugh at some of the stuff, but it's like you guys are saying, it's 85 years old. How many forgettable Frankenstein movies have there been out between these 85 years, right?
Well, and
this one stands out.
We agree with you with that. It was good seeing it. It was good to talk about it, to analyze what it brought and how much further along it brought the movie genre. The movie, how things were shot, how things were laid out, how the scripts were written. But did I personally like it or love it? No.
No, that's what the ratings for at the end.
For what it did.
Right. Yeah. And without this,
how many costumes I've seen over the years of Bride of Frank, you know it instantly when you see a bride.
Like John was saying, it's very iconic.
What's that?
It's very iconic. The look for look.
I think John's right. This may be the most iconic female monster in the history of
except for pink flamingos
or Species. She wasn't
with
bad.
Divine.
Species. I remember her.
Divine with the
I believe Trish worked on the Species sequel, didn't she?
I did. I worked on Species too.
Species was too much like Alien. Species was too much like the Alien.
That was a female monster.
Geiger.
That's right, a female monster.
Yeah.
But and Drew, frankly, without this one, we wouldn't have Young Frankenstein. I know that's.
Yeah, but you say that it's not just Young Frankenstein.
I wouldn't want you guys to miss out.
It's the electronics for creation. It's
it's
film.
It's all the tropes. All the tropes.
Yeah, all tropes, Ralph. But that's why it's. I mean, the whole Universal catalog of these monster movies affects all the movies going after them. I mean, think about that. The Wolfman, Dracula.
Have you guys ever seen Monster Squad?
Yeah, I love Monster Squad. That's a great movie.
Right.
What is it?
Werewolf's
Sounds
got
like
nards.
It's the monsters come alive and these kids.
The
Nobody believes
Wolfman's
that
got
these monsters.
nards.
It's Frankenstein. It's I think the Wolfman. There's a whole
Well,
bunch
Dracula's the bad guy.
Dracula's the bad guy, but
Hmm.
the guy from Silence of the Lambs plays Frankenstein. Tom, what's his name? Tom, I forget. He plays the bad guy in Manhunter. I'm sorry, Manhunter.
Oh yeah.
He
Yeah,
plays,
he's
yeah. Good actor. Anyway, Monster Squad.
That's a tribute to those Universal movies.
That's right. That's why I brought
always
it up.
Herman Munster.
There you go.
One of the best monsters. I saw him a lot.
I
As
love the monsters.
Poor Fred Gwynn.
So.
He was such a good actor. And what do most people remember him for?
Hey,
My cousin
most
Vinny.
people never get remembered for anything, though, Joe. Just remember that.
He's my cousin Vinny. That's it.
My
He's
cousin
good.
Vinny, he was awesome.
Yeah, and remember,
A ute? What's a ute?
Wait. What'd you say, Sean?
there is no monument on Fred Gwynn's grave. It's a
Oh.
blank, unmarked.
Why?
Why?
It would probably be defaced.
Did he ever do any of your films? Did you ever offer a film to him?
No, he didn't. He didn't turn us down.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
so.
Look, he took an iconic character and then made another iconic character out of that. That's
Absolutely.
not a bad legacy for an actor to have.
Yeah.
It reversed it because the book is so much about the father's son, and the father is Frankenstein, and the son's the monster. And then in this series, he was the sweetest dad. He cared so much about all the kids and everybody being happy.
It was a family sitcom. Just happened to be
He was
monsters.
a
That's
nice
all.
monster.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was great. Oh, Deb, are you satisfied now? Because you've been dying to get this film on.
I gotta put the nail in the
In the coffin?
because
The table.
the whole idea. This movie was like how old?
1935,
right?
85 years old.
85 years ago, this woman had this idea of a creativity in a creation that we're finding more about today. This is way ahead of its time, and it's just
So it's girl
Awesome.
power.
Well, Mary Shelley wrote
No.
it in 1812.
it's
Right.
not. It's
On a
not
dare,
about women.
actually. Do you know
Doesn't
that?
matter.
It was a contest, wasn't it?
It was
Something
a-
like that?
Yes, it
Lord
was a
Byron had a
contest.
bunch of people over his house, and it was who can write the scariest story in a weekend, because they didn't have TV back then. So
And
Lex.
here's the thing about that: it doesn't matter that she was a woman. It doesn't,
No.
because a brilliant mind is a brilliant mind. It doesn't matter
absolutely.
if you're a female or a male, and kind of insulting to me, that not that you guys are insulting, but our culture is saying, oh, women are just as smart as men. Well, of course, but you don't have to really say that, do you?
Actually smarter, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's true. Einstein was a genius.
Yeah, it is.
well, I know
that-
you can break it down, but
There's just so many smart women that I've worked with, not me, really smart women. And they all, the funniest thing is, I could tell you guys, when I first met my boss and I went there, the first day she had on this really cute skirt, and it was like flowing a skirt. And she goes, hey, Deb, watch this. And she spun around, and it was just like what you would do in like the third grade. She goes, isn't that cool? And I said, yeah, but she's a genius. I mean, she works, she is amazing, her mind and what work is being done, day and night. And when I'm out of it now, so I could tell you.
I mean, you're out of it right now? You're out of it?
I'm tired. No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
You're out of
sorry.
that work.
But,
we
this
just
they are.
can't stay on the movie. Good. I love
Yeah, and the
Brandon
movie
Smith.
is the creative force, that the DNA molecule, we're decoding it, we're deciphering it, we can clone, you know what I mean? And
Right.
we can create a human, but it's very scary. Ethics, we have to really watch that, because
I
you
think
don't
that's
want.
proved in the film. They realized they made a mistake.
You should tamper in God's domain.
God's domain. God.
All right.
Listen,
Let's
But
rate this.
maybe-
Let's rate this in our domain.
We're not meant to play God.
Okay, we're gonna rate this in our domain now. Let's start with our guest, Trish. It's either, here's how we do it: Yippee-Ki-Yay or Yippee-Ki-Nay.
Or
You're on the
Yippee-Ki-Yay.
fence, you go Yippee-Ki.
Yippee-Ki-Yay on this one.
All right.
I knew I liked Trish.
Drew?
I think maybe it should be part of the required viewing at National Institute of Health.
Yes.
I think it sounds like a good idea.
Oh, Yippee-Ki-Yay for sure. I mean, it's
Excellent.
It's a classic film. It's great.
Wojo, Brad?
Yippee-Ki-Yay.
That's where I was too.
That's pretty good.
John?
I have to give this a Yippee-Ki-Yay, a big one, a huge one. I love this
What
movie.
is that? Is that
That's my
what's
Boris
that?
Karloff. I don't know.
Oh, that's what that is. I was confused.
Ralph, why don't you do Boris Karloff for me? Go ahead, let's do it.
Wine good. Wife good.
I gotta be honest, that wasn't bad.
You could just do Phil Hartman. Fire back.
Oh, that's I like. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Phil Hartman.
All right, Debbie and Sean. I think I know. Come on.
Yay.
Yippee-Ki-Yay.
Yeah.
I'm going Yippee-Ki-Yay on the art of the movie. I'm going Yippee-Ki-Yay on the acting and the just. How did people buy this stuff? I don't get it, but that's for me to.
You know, the sad thing is Colin Klein.
There's-
Colin Klein, who played Dr. Frankenstein, died shortly after this.
Yeah, Brad
really?
saw that.
Yeah.
He was
He was
30.
young.
Thrown off a windmill.
He had a drinking problem, pretty
He
bad
had
drinking
best
problem.
hair though. Would always.
He was great when he was
Right
doing
over
"It's
his-
alive, it's alive."
I'm always amazed at how much older they looked back then. I mean,
Well, you know, the woman was 17, I think.
yeah.
The fiance was
The
17.
crazy doctor. What was the doctor's name?
Pretorious.
Pretorious. He was 56 at the time.
And he looked like he was like
He was 4 years
80.
older than I am.
I know he did look old, didn't he?
But
put away wet those guys.
Well, that's what I said about High Noon, Brad. When I watched High Noon, Gary Cooper was 50 years old. And if you look at him in that movie, he's got the lines. He just looks old. And it's like, I don't know what it is about that time period, but I just think we're aging better because of cloning, DNA manipulation,
right?
genetic coding.
Violet lights coming from our devices.
I've been spliced.
Suntan
All right,
lights.
that was a good one. What's that?
I said
Implants.
transplants, you know.
air conditioning.
Air conditioning, yes.
Central heating.
We're talking about next week's podcast. I was going to jump the line and bring a movie, but it's Brad's birthday, and I guess I can't really jump the line. So.
Today's my birthday, so it doesn't matter.
That's right. Brad picks.
Take the
Brad,
movie.
you will
He's
pick the
gonna
movie
bring
for the next
something
one.
I'll
for
take it.
1971 again.
No rush.
Bringing yet, but
Yeah, let us know. Let us know in a couple days so we can get a jump on it. Sean,
And to
were you saying
all our
something?
audience, what do we want to wish our audience?
Happy Thanksgiving.
A very happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
As good as you can have under the present circumstances.
Well, they just so you know, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving around the world, so we don't want to cut.
Well, I'm pretty sure the 10 people that watch this are from the United
I
States.
want to wish our friends in Southeast Asia a happy Tet offensive.
There you go.
Oh, just he's so.
And with that, we just lost 5 more of the 9 people who follow us.
All right, listen.
Thank
Wow.
you,
Sorry,
Sean.
Vietnam.
oh, they're
Yeah,
they're
right,
not
exactly. The whole country. Trish,
It's okay.
Yeah,
I hope this doesn't stop you from listening down the road. I hope now that you've been on it and all the secrets have been exposed that you'll still listen.
I'm a total fan for sure.
Okay, and come on, well, if other than Straw Dogs, if there's another movie, maybe
Yeah,
one that you've
I wanna
worked
see
on,
that.
something you've worked on in your career that you want to bring to the table.
yeah, you
let
give us some
know.
backstory on.
Right? It's all good.
That'd be awesome. Thanks for joining us, Trish.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.
All right, guys, everybody have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
All of you have a great Thanksgiving. All of you.
John, you want to end with your? You have your
watching.
you have your Frankenstein head up?
Oh yeah, wait a minute. Let me get the. It makes noise too, by the way.
We don't really need. Okay, look at
Folks.
that. Just do it, John, because we can't hear it. It's alive. It's alive. All right.
Oh, it's just like being in the movie.
Very scary. All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll see you
John
next week.
Jordan,
Thank
Trump
you.
bad.